mentioned, there's a ton of uncertainty around this and what it means for the relationship between Aboriginal title and private land ownership. And really the main takeaways from this 600-page document, it's kind of both a history document and a legal document. And you kind of go into what the roots of this claim were, which go back to BC's first governor, who promised to kind of put aside, exempt from being given out or sold, land that made up this settlement that the Cowichan had, before the British arrived or before there was any colonization of the area. And so what happened is the guy who was the first person tasked with, looking after that, ensuring that promise was kept, actually, the guy who's Port Moody's named after, Richard Clement Moody, ends up selling, buying a couple of pieces of land himself covertly. And that sets in sort of motion this process in the many decades and century after, whereby that land has been bought, sold, but breaking that original promise. And so the judge attempts to basically set that right here, saying, okay, well, you've got Aboriginal title over this land. She invalidated the title, the ownership over the Crown and the sort of BC and the federal lands. But with regards to the private landowners, there's about 150 landowners affected. She said those two things can coexist, and that's what is such a head scratcher. How did Aboriginal title and private ownership coexist?
Well, I guess then that is the question now. We saw there was the meeting held in Richmond a couple of weeks ago. Hundreds of homeowners showed up, and you said it's only about 150 landowners that are really affected. So set off this huge conversation across the province. Where do we go from here? The source of anxiety.
The judge addressed actually that anxiety, and this sort of said it's hyperbole. And what's needed with regards to this is for both sides, the Cowichan and the Crown, ultimately, on behalf of private landowners, to reconcile this, to negotiate what that means. What that negotiation means will end up being something else that's discussed in the courts, no doubt. And this is nowhere from settled, but I mean, basically that's what she says is going to happen, is reconciliation and negotiation.